I grew up in the 50s and the 60s, and the idea of looking at women and their issues sort of separately or giving them separate attention was not really part of the way that we looked at the world.
I grew up here in Houston in a whole integrated school environment, which was very different from how my mother grew up.
If I'd had some of the role models that there are now, or people that I knew of or had access to that had faces like mine, I think that it would have fed my confidence.
It was with the U of H Women's Studies program that I made my first venture into community activism and volunteerism.
Women's Studies programs developed in response to the fact that more and more women were entering the professorate, were becoming professors. And as they arrived on campus and started doing research, they found that a lot of the questions that were interesting to them hadn't been asked before. And they started developing classes that looked at the role of gender in women's history and women's roles in the world from the perspective of their gender.
Gender offers us another view, another prism through which to view things. So it gives us a more complete story.
Giving validation to studying women as a discrete subject has opened the doors even in a field like medicine or like science.
But it's also been good for my soul. It's been wonderful for me as a person to learn about my own involvement in the world as a woman of color.
It's the only way to see things. Now it's probably one of the most important lenses that I have. It's amazing, and it affects everything that I do.
One of the things that I find so positive about women's studies here at the university is that it's a very concrete community.
I was on the faculty at U of H in the early 1990s when the Women's Studies program was first born on this campus. I was at the table when Cynthia Freeland and a few other people came together to lay the groundwork for not only the academic program of Women's Studies at U of H, but for the Friends, for the Community Outreach Board as well.
The Friends are invaluable to the health and welfare of the Women's Studies program.
There's a natural community between women in the world and women on the campus.
That's added so much strength and variety. I think Houston's much richer from having the Friends of Women's Studies grow along with the academic program.
We work together to try to create an environment that allows women to achieve their potential and to transform the world in positive ways for everybody.
I received a $20,000 fellowship for the 2005-2006 academic year, which essentially enabled me to write my dissertation. There's no way I would have been able to do it without that help. I have young children, and being a mother and also being a graduate student is sort of a double unpaid, unrecognized work. Without the fellowship, I would not have been able to dedicate the time that I did.
We don't normally, as we go through our day, think about how is motherhood changing. Motherhood is.
My due date for my third baby was the day of the motherhood conference, so I was really, I really wanted to go. Unfortunately, I was sort of a day away from being in the hospital, ironically.
And it was a national conference to talk about a topic that is near and dear to all of us. And just like so many of our events, a room full of interested people creates this sum greater than the parts. It was wonderful just to be together and to know that other people are thinking about these things and that we can offer the frame with which to do it.
Well, that first table talk I went to was very inspiring because it was a room full of women. I'm sure there had to have been at least one or two men there, but I was just very inspired to see so many women from so many different backgrounds in one luncheon.
In Table Talk, what we sought to do was to recognize the accomplishments of women in the community in a lot of diverse fields, and at the same time to draw on their resources to help us grow our programs.
These were women who were coming just to have a good conversation about all kinds of interesting and challenging topics.
So there's a lot of dialogue going back and forth between the program and the community, and that's been an essential part of its functioning from the beginning.
One of the things that I found really exciting about Friends of Women's Studies is the Living Archive series that happens a couple of times every semester.
Well, you have to know your past in order to figure out where you want to go in the future. You have to know both the strengths of the past that you want to continue to draw on and the problems so that you can find ways around them.
You can write history, you can do tapings, recordings, but until you see that person's face and you see their reaction and the passion behind everything they say, you're not going to get a complete history of everything that they have to give you.
It's an event that takes place in the Menil in Houston in the Museum District, and it brings together women from different parts of Houston, different age groups, different interests. The crowd is always different, and there's always a really lively discussion. And those events end up getting recorded and put into the University of Houston Library, and they're archived there.
This is the only organization that I know of that's trying to preserve the history of Houston's women.
There aren't a lot of archives that focus on Houston, let alone women in Houston. So it's pretty special, it's pretty unique.
Papers that are collected in the archive here on campus and that's supported by the Friends of Women's Studies are the papers of Houston area women's organizations and of individual women who have made Houston history.
And now for the first time we are collecting those documents that testify to what women think are important, about what has been interwoven into women's lives.
It's a place where we can go, and they help us identify our evolution as women, as Houstonians.
It's a place where you can get information. It's a place that can help communicate to young women about what you can do with your life.
Well, it's fantastic for them because they get to see all these wonderful models. These are women who have accomplished things and who've been very courageous, and a lot of them were the first in their profession or the first in their field, first in their business to do something, and they've led the way, not only in creating opportunities for women who are coming after, but also in modeling the idea that the women who come after will also be able to break ground for themselves.
The Friends of Women's Studies is such an important organization, not only to the University of Houston, but to the community.
I think we're the only guild that supports a women's studies program in the country. And I think many more women's studies programs need this kind of intensive fundraising and community support.
And they're a tremendous help. We couldn't do it without them.
So important that someone is taking the lead in making sure that women's voices will be heard.
It's very important for women to continue on the path that we're on right now.
I think more young women need to sign up, and more women like me who are just graduating and have new ideas and new energies should really be a part of this.
We're all in this together, and we're all trying to do something together.
And if we're not the ones preserving the heritage and increasing the interest and the emphasis, who will?